Alright, let's move on down to the bottom of this section. Let's see what else we can write down about intercept form. So next section is, how do you find the vertex of intercept form? Well, this is how we do it. To find the x value, you add the x-intercepts together and divide by 2. And divide by 2. And the reason this works, class, if we take a look at a quick graph here, let's say that my x-intercepts were right here on it and right here. Well, when we add the x-intercepts and divide by 2, we're going to actually find the vertical point, or the point that's exactly in between the two x-intercepts. And we know that's where the vertex has to be, because that's where the axis of symmetry is going to be. So all we're doing is taking the average of the two x-intercepts. We add them together and divide by 2. That's taking the average. And then we find our y value like we always find our y value of our vertex. We're going to plug the vertex x value in into the equation. Plug the vertex x value into the equation and solve for y. So just plug it in. Plug it in, you get your y value. That's the y value of your vertex. Alright? Let's take a look at how this plays out with our equation. So remember, our equation is y equals 3 times x plus 1 times x minus 4. So we know our x-intercepts are -1 and 4. So we're going to find the x value of our vertex by taking -1, adding the 4, and dividing by 2. -1 plus 4 is 3. 3 over 2. You can leave it that way, or we're going to go ahead and change it to a decimal, 1.5. So our x value of our vertex is 1.5. Now to find our y value, we're just going to plug that in. So we're going to find what y is equal to when we have, there's our a value. We've got x plus 1, so 1.5 plus 1, and then 1.5 minus 4. When we put those in our calculator, the number that's going to come out is going to be the y value of our vertex. Let's go ahead and put that in our calculator. So we're going to put 3 and then parentheses 1.5 plus 1, and then close parentheses, open parentheses, 1.5 minus 4. Now, I have taught you before that whenever you put an x value into an equation, anytime you put any variable into an equation, you always put it in parentheses. Now, you could go ahead and put the 1.5 in parentheses again, but the reason I'm allowed to skip that is because it's already in parentheses. It's already in a binomial. So in this case, I can just go ahead and forget the second set of parentheses. We're going to go ahead and press equal now, and our value is -18.75. So, in our example, the vertex is 1.5 is our x value, and -18.75 is our y value. Alright, down to the next part. The last part of our parabola. We've covered the x-intercepts, we've covered the vertex, now we'll cover the y-intercept. Now remember, class, we've learned many times that the x-intercepts always have a y value of 0. Well, the y-intercept always has an x value of 0. So to find the y-intercepts, you set x equal to 0 and solve for the value of y. And this is because y-intercepts will always have an x value of 0. So let's go ahead and go over to the example and let's go ahead and solve this. So we're going to go ahead and set x equal to 0 and solve for y. So y is going to be equal to 3 times 0 plus 1 times 0 minus 4. And let's put that in our calculator. So I'll put in 3 and then in parentheses 0 plus 1, close parentheses, open parentheses, 0 minus 4, close parentheses, plus equal, and we have y equals negative 12. So the y-intercept, where this parabola or where this equation crosses the y-axis, is negative 12. And that's all there is to solving for the y-intercept. Now, if I were you, class, in the book here or in your flip book, I would put these words in parentheses. I'm going to put parentheses. I'm not going to write it, but in parentheses you should write. Why do we set the x equal to 0 and solve for y? Because the y-intercept will always have an x value of 0. So I'll say that again. Because the y-intercept will always have an x value of 0. Alright, so that covers all of the basic parts that we need to know about an intercept form quadratic, how to find the x-intercepts, how to find the vertex, how to find the y-intercept, and what A does to the graph, and what happens when the x-intercepts change. How does that affect the graph?